Good afternoon and welcome to those joining us on video. This is the last of the series of seminars we've run over the past 6 months, where we've been looking at how theatres have been reimagining their function over the evolving course of this crisis. Today's seminar is grandly billed as theatres as businesses. It's a bit of a catch-all of topics which have been raised by participants in these seminars and people contacting Theatres Trust for advice. So we've got quite a broad range of different topics to be discussed today. And we're really interested in hearing a wide range of different experiences of different theatres throughout that. The crisis has pushed theatres to reimagine their purpose and their business models, and whether that's for the short term, the medium, or the longer term. Initially, we want to have a chat about how a couple of different theatres have adapted to provide digital work. The emergence of digital theatre has been a necessity, but also an opportunity for creativity in the sector, and has allowed theatres to reach people beyond their usual geographic catchment and removing some of the physical barriers to engagement. First, we're going to hear from Lucy Davies from the Royal Court. The Royal Court have been agile in producing a show both in person and for digital audiences, and that's allowed flexibility, but also allowed the show to be able to continue when it wasn't possible to perform, when it hasn't been possible to perform in person. So I'll hand over to Lucy to begin with to talk us through the Living Newspaper project and other things they've done with digital there. You there, Lucy?
I'm here. Thank you very much, Tom. Hello, everybody. Some familiar faces, lots of new people. I'm Lucy, executive producer, executive at the Royal Court. I identify as a white European woman with long greying hair, aging fast through this pandemic. Hello. So yes, I'll speak briefly about what we've been doing at the Royal Court and a bit more about the context of digital, because it's a very lively conversation which you'll all be involved in, I'm sure. To talk about Living Newspaper in the context of theatres as businesses feels a bit laughable, because it was the most, financially, it has been an idiotic gesture. Ticket income is about 10% of expenditure. But when I was asked to come and sort of share a bit of a digest of the project, and exactly as you say, Tom, how we used it to adapt our models to sustain ourselves and survive this period, I think it has been really important and interesting about not just about what a business plan is for, really, and how you dive back into your core mission when thinking about digital work. It's worth saying, I also feel humbled to be talking about this, because other theatres across the UK and certainly around the world have been doing really extraordinary digital work. And certainly there's a group, I'm part of a group, I chair a group called the London Theatre Consortium, which is 14 London producing theatres. And we've set up a little digital working group of artistic directors and executive directors. And many of those theatres have been doing some really incredible and very economically successful digital work. But some of the questions we've been asking are, you know, what is the best type of content, and how do people want to watch it? What does digital become when live is possible again? What next? Do these two, live and digital, coexist? And how are we going to find the money? And exactly as you say, Tom, digital, specifically a big conversation we've been having is around access. It's been amazing for access, those with access needs, but also reaching across the UK and around the world. And that's also true of R&D. So we ourselves have been doing some writer development, lots of our writer workshop, writer development work online, so with writers across the UK and across the world. And I know Opera North has been doing some amazing R&D with artists, disabled artists around the world. So, however, as we know, digital can't become our sort of second best option for those with access needs. It's going to need some real ethical thinking. And a big thing we've been talking about is digital poverty and Zoom fatigue, and what we've got to recognise all of that as we return to our live lives. So yeah, we're talking a lot as a group about, we've sort of parcelled it up into live streaming, archived productions and digital commissions and free content, funding and monetising this work. And then also we've been talking a lot about creating a kind of baseline package of pay rates and rights, because at the moment it's a bit Wild West about how people contract artists to make work on digital platforms. Anyway, back to Living Newspaper. So for us, in thinking digitally, we decided to stare deeply into our mission and our identity and our purpose, and to think about how we could use digital to deliver our mission, to sustain a pipeline of artists, to amplify our brand, for want of a better word, to grow audiences, and critically to maintain philanthropic relationships. So during a year or more of darkness, how could the digital work do all of those things for us? And Living Newspaper was conceived to do that. It's a 6-week project. We've done 2, we're in a little hiatus, and we're going to do 4 again from the end of March. It's a 6-week project in which a team of writers and makers create a weekly newspaper. It's performed by a company of around 13 actors in spaces across our whole building. And exactly as you were saying, Tom, it was initially conceived, edition 1 was performed to live audiences moving around the building and online. Edition 2 was online only. It looks likely that the remaining editions will be online only. Principally, actually, what we wanted to do was disperse some money to freelancers. So we wanted to come up with a project that employed loads of people, hence its economic madness. Not just all of our staff. What was a project that actually needed all of our staff to deliver it? But we're working with around 40 writers, in total around 200 freelancers across the 6 weeks. So that was really important, get some work for people. We also wanted to come up with a sort of alternative, energizing cultural offer alongside the live streaming of shows that other finer theatres were doing. So we wanted something that was really alive to the cultural trauma and global trauma that we are in the middle of. We wanted something very contemporary. This again, this is what the Royal Court does, very international, very experimental, very radical, something that actually we might not have been able to do in normal times. But also, really importantly, we wanted it to be very playful, very healing, very silly. So it follows a newspaper format, but as well as kind of long reads and headlines and front pages, we have a horoscopes section at the back of our bar and an agony aunt in our cloakroom. And we definitely, as you say, Tom, wanted something that was nimble enough to migrate online really quickly. The fact that it's a weekly creation model, so it was much more resilient than 4 weeks rehearse, tech, open, oh shit, now we're off again, disruption. We wanted something that could really quickly pop up and pop away again. And we also wanted something that would really tantalize donors, existing and new, and be a real fundraising drive. And we did raise the majority of the costs of the project from philanthropy. So the way we work, the way of thinking, of kind of embedding a filmmaker right at the outset, of scheduling with filming in mind, I think these are all things that we will begin to embed in our practice going forwards. And also, I think critically, just to return to where I started, really, I think a digital strategy has to dig deep into the core business mission. What are you for? And what does that look like in remarkable times? And what does it look like in normal times? And how does this rupture that we're in gift us an opportunity to experiment and break the rules a bit and test something? So we've actually just completely reworked the way we're going to do editions 3 to 6, really with that in mind. How can we learn as much as we possibly can about digital output and digital creation, and to use this project to test ways of working? So we've been really kind of self-evaluating rapidly as we go, and that's been very energizing. That's a kind of, is that enough, Tom? That's a whistle stop. Have I done my 5 minutes?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think the few kind of key points that you brought out there is talking about how digital theatre is not one thing. It's kind of a medium of, and can be so many different things. And as your kind of work across the consortium of asking what does the liveness bring, and what opportunities lie with this, with using this technology in different ways to be able to kind of create an experience, is really kind of exciting and interesting. And I think certainly it's something that we were kind of, that is really interesting to see, is bringing live and current work that isn't which is responsive, which is kind of one of the joys that we have of theatre, is the live and the responsive nature of it. That bringing that into this digital form has been really interesting. If anybody has any questions, then drop them in the chat. I'll group all the questions for Ewan and Lucy together, because I think there will be some interesting, there's scope for some interesting discussion there. So I'll move straight on to Ewan Lewis, who's the artistic director of the Barn Theatre in Cirencester. I think it's, when I talk about kind of transformed business models, I think the Barn Theatre is one that's responded to the opportunity for digital in exactly that way. But I'll let you introduce that, Ewan, and we'll come to questions after.
Thank you, Tom. Can you all hear me okay? Thumbs up if you, yeah, brilliant, fantastic. It's always interesting when you are about to talk about being hot on your tech and then the sound doesn't work. But you can hear me, I can see you laughing, so that's a good start. Really, really difficult to talk about this subject in 5 minutes, but I'm going to do my best to be as concise as possible, so I should really get going. It is quite unfair to really think that it was the pandemic that brought on digital and digital theatre and how we utilize this technology. We had a bit of a head start, if I'm totally honest, because we have been doing work like this for a number of years. I'm a nerd at heart, and ultimately anything that is to do with new shiny technology, I want to get my hands on it as soon as possible. So in the years just before this horrible time happened, we did lots of community projects, and it was lovely to hear Lucy talk about going back to the core values. Ultimately, all of this is born out of the 3 core values of the Barn Theatre when we opened in 2018, but we devised in the years before. What is the role of a theatre in a community is the big thing that we always look at, and the answer always for me is, like a church or a place of worship, the theatre should be right there at the heart of your community. And we're very lucky that, you know, we've got a small community in Cirencester. I walk down the street, I know every single person. I have a passion, my team shares a passion for new ways of doing anything. If there's a way that things have been done for 100 years, I go out of my way to change that, because I don't agree that, just because someone did it like this a long time ago, that we should stick to that. And therefore, the passion for embracing technology at every opportunity. We're a tiny team here. Without the help of robots, gizmos, and technology and computers, we couldn't do what we do on a daily basis. So technology has become that sort of the rest of the team that we can't afford in the little 203-seater Barn Theatre in the middle of nowhere. Anyone who lives in the Cotswolds would agree with me. We're in the middle of nowhere. You don't happen to drive past Cirencester, unless you're going to Wales, which is a wonderful place. And the other thing is a platform for emerging talent. We've always thought that, well, the thing that we do best is give young people time to go out and flex or to spread their wings. And then when this, what I call Project Pandemic, happened and the world got turned upside down, I stared my team in the eyes. We were in this room, actually, which was our rehearsal studio, which is now our media suite, and said, we've got choice here, folks. We can either run away and hide, but this isn't going to go away, or we can just get going and get to work and jump off the cliff and know that we're probably going to fail 1,000,000 times, but we may succeed 1,000,001 times. So what do you want to do? It's on you. And every single person there said, let's get going. And then we went straight back to those core values and looked at, what does our community need? Well, they needed information on what was happening in this world that nobody really understood. So the first thing I did was get my MP on the phone and say, we're not getting the information we need for this community. I want you to come on our show. In 5 days, we set up the auditorium as a live streaming station. And we had Sir Geoffrey Clifton Brown on the stage, giving the information to our audience here in Cirencester before it was in the news. And the audience went, bloody hell, we didn't know we needed that, but it kind of makes us feel a little bit safer here. Then we looked at what the problems were with young families having to homeschool, and to give a bit of a light relief. And you've completed Netflix, you've watched all of CBeebies. Can we do some entertaining content? So we teamed up with Gifford Circus and Tweedy the Clown and said, let's just put some entertainment on the stage and live stream it and do something different. And we messed up. You watch that stuff on YouTube, some of it's awful. But it's a product of its time, and we don't need to be perfect right now. We've just got to get going. We've got to give people something to enjoy, something to feel part of a community, and to prove the role of theatres in these communities. We have sort of developed from that point. Then I was looking at, what is our community? Is it just the audience that's in Cirencester? Because I don't feel like I'm just part of a community in Cirencester. I feel like I'm part of this global theatrical community. And what do people need? And what do these actors need? What do these creatives need? And we had no money at the time. So we devised a project called Bard from the Barn, which was a collective project where we worked with over 200 creatives, doing every single day for felt like forever, a reimagination of Shakespeare's works told to the backdrop of lockdown. And we did over 100 different videos. We were doing sort of it was five different monologues, then it went into a week, and then it went into duologues, then it went into scenes, and then we've had to stop it because I think we ran out of content. Shakespeare needs to start writing some new stuff. But it sort of showed what was possible, that camera phones in people's homes, filming themselves, doing wonderful theatrical work, was good enough. The audience wanted it. It had over 1 million views in total. And we're the Little Barn Theatre in Cirencester. But quite quickly, we realised that we're a team of, that flexes between 10 and 15, that we weren't able to do it all. So, and there's stuff that we've got that others haven't, and I'm the first one to put my hands up and say, I actually, most of the time, don't have a clue what I'm doing. And we reached out and said, we want to speak to other venues across the country. You will have better ideas than us, but we have a facility here, we have a way of doing things here, we're nimble, we're agile, and we want to make work because I think that's our purpose. And then suddenly, Henry Philu-Bennett from the Lawrence Batley Theatre, Pete Rowe from the New Wolsey Theatre, Tamara Harvey from Theatre Clwyd, the Oxford Playhouse. We were collaborating with people that I could only dream of collaborating with. And projects like What a Carver, Jonathan Coe's novel, which became this sort of hybrid media, not a film, not a podcast, not a radio play, was formed. And we thought, well, Sky Arts aren't going to be interested in us. YouTube aren't going to pay the big bucks they're paying for the National Theatre to put stuff on, or other venues across the globe. So how do we get our stuff to an audience? And we thought, well, let's just do it ourselves. And how do you learn to do all of this stuff? Well, you go on YouTube and you learn. You don't need a degree. You don't need a course. You don't need to go and do a seminar. I love seminars. But it's about sort of going, what is it that we want to achieve? How do we go and get that? Usually the answer is YouTube. All this information is there. My team live on YouTube. When they don't know something, the next day, they never admit that they don't know it. The next day they come back in with the answers. And I go, how did you find that out? YouTube. It's incredible. And so we then made a film, which then made more money than we've ever made in any single production that's been on the stage, because it was sold to a global audience. We're now doing another film. We're doing a new adaptation of Dorian Gray. We, again, working with superstars that we never thought we'd ever work with. I can't tell you the full cast, but the likes of Finn Whitehead, who was in Dunkirk, in What a Carver. We worked with the likes of Alfie Enoch, Stephen Fry, and some of those may be returning for the next project. But, opportunities arose out of the fact that we just dared to do something. And it's not sophisticated. We don't have perfect business models. We don't know it to every penny that we're spending on it. But the alternative was failure. The alternative was the barn wouldn't be here, because we couldn't survive the pandemic. We didn't have the luxury of being able to sit on months and months of reserves. We're an unsubsidized charity we're very young, so we don't have the ability to go to lucrative backers or philanthropists who have a long-standing relationship with the venue. We had to get going, and we had to get noticed, and we had to get noticed quickly, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here today in a lovely media suite. Very much where we're going with this is now up for grabs. I think that digital theatre, to echo Lucy's words, is here to stay. It's not an alternative to live theatre. It's what I think we will be doing. It'll be a core part of our business model going forward. We are toying with the idea of launching barn films. It is something that we've realised that actually, when I look at my team, and you can only play the cards that you are dealt with, but when I looked at the cards that I was dealt with, this worked. And I know that doesn't really help, because you're going to look at yourselves and say, well, maybe that isn't the team that I've got. But I can guarantee, if you partner up, if you look at what our purpose is, and if they do if you can find a reason to do digital and to do it well, then this is the answer. This is the answer, and you will find that the creativity that will come from it. And it's not usually from me. The one thing that I've realized is actually my ideas are not so great. So therefore, I lean on the more talented freelancers and people out there who have wonderful ideas. So my inbox is always open for people to pitch ideas to me. And then we have a facility that we can make those happen. And then ensuring that we're not just a pretty building sitting here doing nothing during the pandemic, that actually, like Lucy was saying, let's employ as many people as we possibly can, because otherwise we're not going to have an industry to go back to when all this is over. So although that is an absolute mess of a speech from myself, I think I kind of have got most of it in there. But again, I don't know the answers. That's all I know, is that we're going to keep going.
That's great. No, I think that's the kind of scratch mentality of let's get things out there and see how it goes, and we'll learn as we go, is the message coming out of both of you, really, saying this is a journey that we're going on to make it work. A question that's coming through is about monetization and how you kind of make sure that you cover the costs for these things. Are you at the barn, are you working on a kind of a ticketing form of income, or how is that going? Is it covering its costs that way?
Yeah, so there's we started off with the projects like Bard from the Barn and working with Tweedy the Clown and Gifford Circus, all of that stuff. We hadn't quite figured out how to do the monetization model at that point. So we would put the content out there for free, and donations would come in. Then we'd distribute from donations that would come in to the partners who were involved. By the time that we'd sort of figured it all out and we started creating content specifically where money was being spent, for example, What a Carve Up, I think it was 3 venues that are involved in that one. Of the 3 venues, we put a budget together, we put the money into a bank account and worked to that budget, not realizing that we would make a significant profit out of that. So What a Carve Up, I can't remember exactly how many sales we did, but it grossed over 100k, and our budget was 18. So again, from margins, that was ridiculous. You know, and it was a new way of doing things, and I don't think we could sort of continue to do that. A lot of the venues put a lot in good faith and in kind, but if you create quality work, and if you can, you know, the infrastructure is in place, you know, you get a good paywall, you can put things out at a high quality, people will watch. Our audiences have never been more desperate for wonderful work.
Great, yeah, absolutely, and that's really, really great to hear that you've had some real successes there. Lucy, there's questions that have come in about contracting, and certainly how kind of the current industry contracts aren't really built for this sort of live streaming, and the broadcast version of what a contract looks like doesn't really work for a live streaming contract. How have you kind of negotiated that around getting your show able to be digitized?
It's a really brilliant question. I think it is something that there'll be some quite rapid union and trade body work on. I mean, they've done some, there are some kind of templates, but exactly that amazing, brilliant success that you've just described, Iwan, is, you know, what you can never quite foresee how these projects are going to roll, and how successful or not they may not be. And certainly at the outset, they can often feel like massive leaps of faith and trust and expenditure from an organization or a team. And also you never know quite long how they're going to be up for, and will you want to put, will the demand be so high you put it back up, you run it, you keep it up for longer. So I think it's all a bit of a hot mess. I mean, we did, this whole project had a kind of spirit of generosity to freelancers in it, so we sort of deliberately upped all of our base rates to capture those rights. They're very limited rights. I mean, it's a newspaper, so it's not a piece of work that we wanted to stick around for. You know, our whole idea was it was very disposable and quick, and made in that spirit. But we I guess it's up to us as institutions, particularly ones that have the resources and the philanthropic base. You know, it's up to us to make sure we really look after freelance artists in this work, and for it not to feel exploitative or grey about where that work is going to end up and how long for.
Great. So thanks both for speaking on this. I think it's really great to hear not just kind of what you've been up to, but also that an acknowledgement that digital theatre is not a new thing, and B, not just a thing for the pandemic, but a world to explore going forwards. And kind of the idea of us bundling this in the kind of in the strange title of theatres as businesses is going, yes, you probably do need to have a digital strategy as a theatre, even if you don't really think that it's a major part of your work at the moment. I think that's a really great to hear. So I'm going to move on now to the.
Sorry, Tom, I'm going to make one more tiny reflection, just because it hasn't come up yet. Yeah. Is I also think there's a real place about how your digital strategy sits alongside your sustainability strategy, particularly if you're an organisation that normally works internationally a lot. Or maybe this is a post-Brexit thing too, but I feel like there's the way big cultural organisations and mid-scale cultural organisations are moving, particularly under the in the context of the Arts Council's new Let's Create strategy. Mm-hmm. There are a number of kind of aligning influences, I guess, on how we might set our path for the next decade. And Let's Create is one of them, and all the things that you've described at the barn are amazing in terms of how you become a real civic resource for your small and big community, but also, yeah, how that sits with sustainability, digital access and inclusion, and monetize, you know, making yourself robust and not vulnerable economically. All of these things to me knit together. That was awful, but yeah, hasn't come up.
No, absolutely. I think it's like taking your a long-term view of what the purpose of your organisation is and how you deliver this in a sustainable way is going to be critical for all theatre organisations, and absolutely digital strategy is part of that. Great. So I'm moving on now to the next section, where we're talking about something quite different, which is to do with how we address the mental health issues that are going to be coming out from this crisis. Specifically looking at organisationally how we and our workers and the freelancers who we work with, how we can address some of the mental health issues we can kind of expect to see coming out of the end of this pandemic. The crisis has taken its toll on everyone working in theatre, and as we face doubts about how this industry, which has been our vocation and we've dedicated our lives to, faces extreme risk and potential kind of eradication, we're being told that and being told that your livelihoods are potentially no longer viable. Whether the people who've been working throughout this to try to hold together theatres and continue to provide and protect theatres, those freelancers who we've been talking about who've received no support through this time and have had a really difficult period of time, or those furloughed workers who've been unsure all this time whether there'll be a job for them to return to at the end of it. I've certainly had fraught calls with many people in the industry over the past year, and it's important we acknowledge the need to consider the mental impacts on how we support people going forwards. We're joined by Joanne Irvine, who is a professional coach who's dealing with these sorts of issues with clients in the theatre industry and beyond. I think it would be great to hand over to you now, Joanne, to kind of introduce this issue and some of the things we need to be thinking about. You're muted there, Joanne.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom, and thank you for inviting me today to talk to you. Yeah, I'm a coach and I've been working in the arts for about 30 years. I suppose the main thing I want to say to start with is a little bit, Iwan touched on it earlier, I think, is that the pandemic really has shone a light on mental health and well-being. It's something we've been thinking about, I think, for quite a long time within the arts and trying to support our workforce. But this time, over the last year, I think what's happened is we've all felt it ourselves as individuals. And I think when you feel it yourself, you're much more inclined to understand how other people feel. So yeah, so I don't think it's anything new. But what I'd like to talk about is some of the things that have happened over the last year from talking to individuals, and give you, it's nothing you don't know, but it's really basic practical stuff. I mean, I think to start with, what I want to say is our workforce is a massive resource. This session today is about business. And if we're thinking ourselves as businesses, then we need to look at our workforce, because without them, we're lost. And we have to look after them. It's incredibly important. You know, if the roof's leaking in your building, you get it fixed. If the IT system goes down, you get a professional in to sort it out. But when our workforce is suffering, particularly at the moment, maybe they're losing their confidence a little bit, that they're a bit unsure of themselves, they're sad, that you know, they're isolated. I don't really think we're doing very much about it. We might be asking them the questions, but it sort of stops there sometimes. So yeah, so like I say, over the last year, people I talk to are feeling incredibly isolated. Now, that's not something new as a coach. I listen to people talk about anxiety and isolation a lot. But over the last year, all of you know, as individuals yourselves, but also from the people you work with, the artists, the freelancers, the casual staff, everybody, they're going through a lot. One of the worst things is losing their jobs. We've got permanent staff, part-time staff, casuals, volunteers, and freelancers who have just lost their livelihoods completely. And that anxiety is emphasised by that uncertainty, financial uncertainty. And the other thing just to mention is people on furlough, they're so isolated. And one of the things I pick up all the time is they're losing their confidence because they're not getting any feedback. So they're starting to go a bit backwards in their careers. So there's something to think about there. People working from home. I mean, my God, I don't know how all of you lot feel out there, but just the space we work in, trying to adapt to how we work at home with young families, with children who need schooling, caring for people. It's endless, IT going off, all those things. It adds to people's anxiety, and that's what's making this even worse. So what I want to talk about is 4 things that I feel, if we think about them and we do something about them, might make things better for the future. Now, it's not rocket science, it's nothing super new that I'm going to talk about, but they're just simple things. The first one is listening, the second one is time, the third one is space, and the fourth one is responsibility. So it's a little pack really that I hope you could use in any organisation, you could use as an individual. If you think about those 4 things, then hopefully that's going to help with our mental health and our well-being. So I'm going to start with listening. Now, as a coach, listening is what I do. That's my job. I've had to learn to really listen. And what I want to encourage you to do in your organisations and as individuals is to start to really listen and listen properly. There's something called the 5 levels of listening. You can sort of Google it. And the first level is you're not listening at all. You're just letting the person talk. The second level is you're listening, but you're thinking about yourself. So you're thinking, I feel isolated. I need to do something about it for me. So you're just thinking about you. The third one is you're listening to the individual, but you're giving them advice. So you're butting in all the time and you're saying things like, what you need to do is, have you thought about doing this? And you think you're doing the right thing, but actually you're not listening to that individual. So you get to the 4th level, and that's when you start to listen. And that's what I want to encourage you to do within your organizations as individuals. be it online or face-to-face, hopefully eventually it will be face-to-face, is really start to listen and to ask probing questions to people. So you're not asking like what we call open questions that haven't got a yes or no answer. So you start to listen and listen to what they want and need. And it's the only way to really understand what people need from a mental health perspective or from a well-being perspective is to ask them, how are you feeling? And we all say that. We all say, how are you feeling? How are you? And we go, okay, we're fine. Yeah, we're fine. And it's gone. And it's not about that. It's about going to the next level. So number one thing I want to encourage you to do is to listen and to think of a way of doing that. Over the last year, I've spoken to more people in coaching sessions who say their manager doesn't contact them anymore, or they used to have monthly meetings or one-to-ones on a weekly basis, and they just dried up. So this isn't a management meeting I'm asking you to do at all. It's on top of that, but you've got to remember to talk to people. So listening is incredibly important. Second one is time. Now in this sector, we're not brilliant at time at all. We're constantly doing more than we should. And within that, we don't take time out for ourselves. And that's what I want you to do is think about what you need. And I think this has given us that reflective time a bit to think about what we need. And that will help us to think about what our colleagues, the freelancers we work with, the artists we work with, what they need as well. So yeah, so time is incredibly important. And what I want to encourage people to do is have a break. Super simple, have a break, take a lunch break, go for a walk, get out of your seat and walk around. These are so simple. And there's stuff that you hear about all the time, but do we do it? No, we don't. We don't do it. We need to energize our minds and our bodies. So physically, we need to get up and go for a walk. Mentally, we need to move away from the screen and look out the window. And, look at the birds, look at the trees, look at the cars, whatever's out there, just shift your way of thinking. It's the main thing. It sounds silly, really, that people talk to me about in coaching sessions. They're overwhelmed, they're anxious, they're scared, they're worried. And I say, you need to take a break. You need to just walk away and go for a walk. And this isn't just people who are working or on furlough. It's people who are sitting at their computer looking for a job. You need time away so you can think more blue sky thinking about how you're going to do it. You need to do that. So time, I think, is incredibly important. I mean, creativity doesn't just appear when you're looking at a screen. You've got to nurture it. You've got to, entrepreneurial ideas, which is what we need at the moment. They don't just arrive. You need to sort of feed yourself mentally and physically. So time to do that. Number 3 is space. Now, over this last year, I think we've really started to think about space. And also this is about the way we work. So I think this is interesting for freelancers. You can work all over the country, the world now. Now, you always could, but some people didn't really think it was possible to do that. And I think there's something about thinking about space and really asking people, when we do go back to some sort of normality, what they need, what works for them. So again, it's about another conversation, what you need. Within this is flexibility as well. Maybe you work 2 hours in the morning and 4 hours after 6 o'clock. So you've got that whole chunk of the day to do something else. It's about really thinking creatively now about the way we do stuff. I think before the pandemic, we were starting to do things in great spaces as far as offices go and coming up with some good ideas. But this is taking it to another level. And every single one of us needs to be in that conversation about what we need and what comes next. And the other thing on space, just to mention, is think about space where you can have those conversations I talked about to do with listening, where you can really give people that's what we do as coaches, a safe space where they can be themselves. And if they want to cry or shout or whatever they want to do, they can do that. So encouraging those safe spaces. Sometimes it's just outside in the park. I do lots of coaching sessions outside, and that can work really well. So I'm pulling it together now. I'm not going to be long. So listening, we're starting to find the time to listen to people, the time to do it, and the space to do it in, which is brilliant. If we could all do that, I think we'd be starting to move forward. But the fourth one, which is the crucial one really, is taking responsibility. And I feel we just don't do enough of that. And I think we need to do it as individuals, as organisations, and as leaders. We need to take responsibility for mental health and well-being for ourselves. And I push this ourselves, because if we don't do it for us, we're not showing people we're doing it. So that vulnerability in ourselves and talking about it for us is incredibly important, but then as individuals as well. So that's the next step. It's the action and the responsibility as to what that might be. And it can be really simple things like encouraging your team to take a break. You know, I've done so much work over the last few years to do with well-being and asking people what they need for their mental health and well-being. And you know, what you get back, it's so simple. You know, it's really little things. I've done work at in a library service recently, a big local authority library service, and we did a 3-hour session. And you know, I was waiting for people to talk about yoga and mindfulness and all this stuff. And all they were talking about was sorting out the CCTV so they felt secure in the building, and that made them happy. And that was it. It was finding somewhere, you know, having somewhere to have your lunch, a place where you could have a sandwich and feel okay, or actually feeling okay about leaving your desk to have a sandwich. And that's about culture, encouraging people to have that time. So the big thing is little things, really. And I suppose what I want to leave you with is, we all, well, I think we do anyway. I do a lot of work with people about their careers and developing their careers. They have CPD plans, development plans. They think about training and development, what they need to get to where they want to go. But what they don't have is a well-being plan. And what I want you to encourage you all to do is have a well-being plan and encourage your friends, your family, your colleagues, because things like, I'm going to get up an hour earlier in the morning and go for a run, or I'm going to make sure I make some dinner to take for my lunch so that I feel better. It's really simple things, but your well-being, without a well-being plan, your career development plans have it, because if you don't look after you, you can't do what you want to do. So yeah, I think my thing is simple little things. Listen to people, give them the space and the time, and then together we need to take responsibility. And that's it.
Thanks, Joanne. I think it's so vitally important that everybody on this call takes that time and reflects for themselves, because this has been what a year it's been, and the speed at which people have worked, and the things that have been achieved that probably haven't given themselves credit for. And yeah, certainly everybody on the call, and then have a think about how you pass this along to your teams. Have that well-being plan to allow them that space. I think a critical thing for us over the course of the next year is, as we begin to unfurlough staff who may have been furloughed for a long time, not assuming that they have been along this journey of the change of the organisation at the same pace that you have, and allowing them that time to refamiliarise themselves with it as well. Great. So if anybody has any questions on well-being, then post them in the chat now. But otherwise, we can move on to the final section. I think so. Great. Thank you very much, Joanne. I think really valuable stuff. So the last bit that I want to talk to everybody about is just a few reflections on the scenario planning approaches that we discussed earlier this year. So those of you who aren't familiar, we proposed a kind of a 4-scenario model for theatres to use to test their business planning and to kind of create resilience in their organisation for whatever the great uncertainty of the future held. We deliberately designed 4 scenarios that wouldn't be affected by sudden changes in shifts in government policy, and certainly as we've certainly learned to have to swerve in the past, but more bigger ideas about the way in which theatres might return over the course, or might not return over the course of the coming year or two. So we imagined, I'm trying to smoothly bring up a slide here, but I managed to lose it at the same time there. Sorry about that. So allow me to just share that. Great. So we came up with these 4 scenario models based on the idea of how willing audiences are to return and how able theatres are to return given the level of restrictions. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about how we came to these or how I suggest you use those. We've recorded that seminar. We've got an advice sheet, and so you'll be able to find it on the Theatres Trust website to have a look at how we've suggested going about scenario planning to test the resilience of your business model. What I wanted to talk a little bit about is some of the questions that have been coming up in these seminars and in advice that Theatres Trust has been doing around these different things, and some of the key topics to consider. So the risky business world is one where audiences are reluctant to return, or different sections of the audiences are reluctant to return, but theatres are able to. Some of the key things that have been coming out of that, which I wanted to flag since our seminar about this, include the Culture Restart Toolkit, which has gone up from Indigo and the Audience Insights Alliance, who have been doing sector-wide surveys and have created a tool which theatres can tap into to get both the kind of aggregate UK-wide data, but also a set of questions that they can ask their audiences to give you a sense of who are the people who are desperate to return, whether your assumptions are correct about which sections are willing to return, and whether the rollout of the vaccination programme has changed that. Certainly, the responses of audiences' willingness to return is likely to have changed since the first surveys that we saw back in May and June last year. And in light of that, you might want to review your target audiences for works that you look to bring back. Certainly, the conversations coming out of Indigo are that family audiences are desperate to return and desperate for that work, and maybe it's about refocusing your programming strategy to provide to that in the shorter term. And then the final thing that's been emerging there is about communicating the safety of the space that you have and the measures that you've put in place to make sure that it's a safe environment. We're expecting coronavirus to remain in some form for years to come, and audiences will have different levels of reluctance about returning. Certainly the See It Safely toolkit by UK Theatre has been widely taken up as a way of demonstrating that you have complied with what's necessary to do. At the moment, that means social distancing for when theatres reopen, but we don't know what other measures might need to be put in place before then. But how you communicate that with audiences seems to be a key thing about how they then are confident to be able to return. A fast return is our model where, if the restrictions are lifted quickly and people are desperate to return, we certainly get a sense of that audiences are very keen to return at the moment. It raises its own issues, some of which are these mental health and well-being things that we've just been discussing, which is about how do you reinduct those staff who've been out of action for so long? How do you make sure that the staff who have been working don't just reach burnout with the turn up of activity if you do end up reopening? And how do you manage these relationships with your producers and freelancers? Some of the things we were talking about with contracting there, but also the ethics of contracting with organisations with the knowledge that potentially there might be a sudden need to close the show, and where does that leave you in terms of the negotiations with your producers and freelancers? One theatre I've been speaking to have taken the audience, acknowledged with the audience that they're taking on a risk by putting on this performance, and included a non-refundable section of a ticket price that says this is our kind of balancing factor for the risk of this production, and then that makes sure that producers and freelancers get paid for those shows, even if the performance doesn't go ahead. We need to understand the perilous position that people who might not have received any support during this period of time and might not have received any work are in. I was watching the televisual masterpiece that is RuPaul's Drag Race the other day, and there was a great documentary that they've created about what happened to the Queens during lockdown and the mental health tolls that had on those people. I thought it was a really honest portrayal of what it must be like for the people who've not had any support during this time. And the other thing is about capturing the learning and not just going back to the old ways of doing things. A lot of progress has been made on in improving the accessibility of work, and as well as considering how to make actively anti-racist work, or how to really engage with kind of the bigger conversations. And I think there's a risk on a fast return about losing a lot of that. So some of the things that we might want to embed within that. A question that needs considering for those theatre buildings that have been closed for a long time is, have you been monitoring your building and what state is it in? Are you in do you need to go in and do urgent works to your building? If it's not being used for all of this time, there's key plant and machinery that might not have been, that might require servicing. Even if don't have the capital to deliver these projects at this moment in time, it's really critical that you are considering the condition and what might need to be done before you're able to reopen. And if your theatre can't reopen in an audience capacity for a considerable amount of time, what other civic roles can it perform? In our last seminar, with Theatres with Communities, we had a discussion about theatres that have been being used as food banks, and certainly I've been working with a few theatres that are currently vaccination centres. And so, what are the civic role functions that you can perform, and what are the civic role functions that your team might be able to perform? Certainly in Scotland, there was the Eden Court Theatre has been really involved in fulfilling sort of lonely calls and these sorts of key services that need to be done to play a role in the community. And the final one of our 4 scenarios is about negotiating the system, understanding new regulations if they come in. Certainly there's conversation about rapid testing, which is emerging now. And it's this section here is really about the kind of is usually about an ear to the ground and finding out about new developments for putting yourself in the best possible position to be able to reopen. But there's really exciting things coming out around outdoor theatre. Certainly as summer approaches, we're expecting a large number of outdoor performances to take place, and we're lobbying for them to be able to be permitted under restrictions. But also considering, as the Royal Court has done with the Living newspaper, what's a new model that might work for you in terms of production, to make sure that you're able to continue to produce the sorts of work that are in line with your mission. And the final thing that I've put on this is about ventilation, and I think this is a real emerging area for theatres to be considering now, is what's the level of ventilation that you have in your building, and are there going to be easy things that can be done to improve that? There was a really great, we did a seminar called Reopening Stories, where we had some engineers come in to discuss what simple methods can be done, even when you don't have mechanical ventilation, just to improve the level of ventilation that you have. This is live science with the coronavirus, and ever emerging, ever changing regulations and suggestions of what the best practice is for ventilation. But getting an understanding of where you stand with ventilation and what are the quick fixes you can do might help you being able to reopen sooner rather than later. That was a real whistle stop, because what I wanted to do really was say, a lot of these things have already been discussed in our seminars, and they're all online. So by all means, if you've not attended them in the past, please do. But also, Theatres Trust exists as a free advice service to support theatres such as yours. And if you have concerns about how your route to reopening, your path to reopening, then by all means get in touch, and we're here to support you. This has been the last of what has been a series of seminars that we've done. We've received some funding from the Garfield Weston Foundation to help us deliver them. However, we're really keen to continue to support the sector going forwards with similar seminars if they're useful. So by all means, get in touch with us, and we can, if you have these big topics, and we can look around and steal the great ideas of theatres across the country who are already doing amazing work in all of those spheres. So I'd like to thank you all for attending today. And I hope that you've got some kind of nuggets of ideas for for your business model, how to make sure you have a digital strategy and it's embedded, how to make sure you have that well-being strategy to make sure that your staff come back happy and able to work and able to create the kind of the amazing theatre that we have been able to in the past, that we have continued to be able to during this period, and new creative amalgams of what can be done. Thank you all very much for attending. Cheers.